Karibu sana. Habari asubuhi. Karibu. Today I wanted to make a video about the corruption of sisterhood and how we need to replace sisterhood with something more concrete, something with just some more value, some more grit to it, something that can actually sustain us, right? And so this video is titled Extended Motherhood Over Sisterhood. This is important because I'm seeing a lot of brokenness within our community, Black women. I'm seeing a lot of brokenness everywhere I look. I'm seeing it, right? And I'm seeing a lot of attempts to try to hide that brokenness. A lot of boastful terminology and just a lot of things that are being done to hide the insecurity, to hide the depression, to hide the suicidal thoughts, to hide the despair and being single, just so many things, right? I'm seeing it, I'm feeling it, and I can see it. And so I just want to set up a disclaimer. I understand that speaking truth does not make people like you. And thankfully, my calling is to not be liked, right? My calling is to foster unity in spaces of brokenness. And Black women need somebody to talk to them that actually cares, right? And that care doesn't always sound nice. That care can actually make you upset. It can actually just make you wish I would just shut up. I'm sure. I know for a fact. It's the women that just wish I would stop. Just stop. Stop talking about white women. Stop talking about Black people. Stop caring. Right? Stop caring. And that's not something I can consent to. That's not something I can do. And I understand that welcomes frustration and envy and a lot of other things, right? But I'm okay with that. Because at the end of the day, I understand that we need this. Because I needed this at a certain point, and I didn't get it from any Black women. You see, nobody was telling me what I needed to hear. And so I know that there's women that need that guidance, that need that help. And I'm not even fully the guide because I'm not an elder. I'm looking to elders to help me, right? And so this is just my attempt. Every video I do, every video my husband and I do is just that attempt to give that lending hand of care that Black women are really being deprived of. That people as a whole, but specifically I'm talking about today, Black women. We're being deprived from the true knowledge that needs to be given to us without trying not to step on your toes or not trying to make you feel bad. Like, I'm not here for that. I want to make you feel bad because that making you feel bad is going to get you to change. That's what I needed. I needed somebody to tell me, you're doing it wrong. You're failing as a mother. This is not how you prepare to be a wife. I needed somebody to tell me those things so that I can make the right decisions and I was in the right mind space to be able to move through life. But we're not getting that. And so this is my attempt to share that. And so going back to sisterhood. Sisterhood is truly being corrupted right now. Like heavy. And I can see our sisters getting stuck in sisterhood, right? We think that that's it. We think that these spaces of sisterhood, when we come together and we're just, being sisters, we think that's it. Sisterhood is a transit point to another destination. We cannot afford to just be sulking and sitting in sisterhood. Anytime you're sitting in stagnant, you're going to be breeding dysfunction. Stagnant water breeds disease, right? So there needs to be an element of evolvement and moving through, meaning where is this sisterhood leading me? Because if it's just leading me to more sisterhoods, then I don't want it. Okay? I don't want it. Sisterhood is my first point that I have is sisterhood is for the early part of our lives. And an investment in sisterhood as an adult, it can devalue those family roles. So when we're young, before we go into that rites of passage, that's when we have sisterhood, right? That's when we're focusing on friendships and having fun and going and doing things together because we don't have any responsibilities, right? We're still children. We may have some responsibilities, but we don't have that many responsibilities to where we have to center our lives on the responsibilities, right? So sisterhood is about managing and figuring out how to deal with other women, other girls, should I say, and learning how to do that at an early age, right? And so But because, you know, we were removed from Africa, we were removed from where we were supposed to be. We were in environments that did not allow for us to go through the necessary steps, right? So we're doing things way later than we should. Meaning we have 45-year-old women talking about sisterhood, right? When we were supposed to be doing it, when we were in our prepubescent state, right? That was when sisterhood is most important, because we're preparing, we're learning how to deal with other people, we're learning how to solve conflict, and we're going to use those tools that we learn within sisterhood. We're going to use those to be a wife. We're going to use those to be a mother. We're going to use those to be an extended mother to our sisters, our then sisters. Now we're extended mothers together, and I'm going to talk about what that is in a second. But we're using those tools from when we were in that pubescent stage of learning how to manage and deal with relationships with other people. We're using those tools in new destinations, right? We're not staying in sisterhood for long periods of time. That was never what it was designed to do. And I can tell now that sisterhood is being used as a tool, as a crutch, to prevent us from getting to those other stages that require responsibility, right? Responsibility is key to what a woman needs. We are not women without responsibility. That is what makes a woman, okay? You remove the responsibility from the woman, you start getting depression, you start getting anxiety, you start getting insecurity, you start getting imposter syndromes. All these words, right? All these words start being used because the woman is now in a space of decay, because you haven't given her any responsibility, okay? And specifically when I say responsibility, I mean responsibility to other people, right? Other people within her family that can hold her accountable and say, you're supposed to be doing this and you're not doing it. What's going on, right? So we need that. That's key to being a full woman, is responsibility. And so sisterhood is peer oriented and doesn't welcome the influence of elders. Elders are needed to stimulate our growth. And so what I've noticed in sisterhoods in the West is it's just peers. It's just women your age, maybe a little bit younger, maybe a little bit older, but there's really no elder in the space that's guiding us, because that's what sisterhood is about. It's about being guided and prepared for new roles, right? And I'm noticing that sisterhood is just a bunch of women coming together with their wombs, just sitting, just in this very pleasure-centered state. This state that I don't have no responsibility, and let's bond over the fact that we don't have responsibilities. And if we do have responsibilities, let's leave those responsibilities at the door, right? Whether if you're a wife or if you're a mother, you don't have to bring those responsibilities into the sister circle, because here, this is responsibility free, right? And a lot of this is not necessarily black women's fault. A lot of this is a part of integration, because pre-integration, sisterhood had more meaning than this, right? It wasn't this dysfunctional. The integration has deracialized sisterhood and corrupted sisterhood with white values, essentially. So once we integrated with white people, all of our values got integrated as well, right? We weren't just living next to them. We were taking on their values. And so now essentially what sisterhood meant before integration means something completely different now. Meaning I've seen black women look at a white woman and call her sister, versus pre-integration, sister, that term sis or sister was specifically for another black woman, right? And so because of this integrated concept of sisterhood, now that what does that welcome in? That welcome in the white woman's value. What does the white woman value? Herself, her pleasure. She doesn't value men. She doesn't value children. So these are all elements that have creeped into sisterhood because of the integration of white people. When we integrated it with them, we lost a lot of those values. So we can't approach sisterhood the same way that we did before, because now the meaning has been diluted, right? So now sisterhood is kind of a code for feminism, right? That's what I'm starting to realize. And this is something that I've also had to evolve on as well, because if you don't know, I have a space called Our Passage Society, and it's a space for women to congregate and basically hone our values as African women and be the best African women we can be. But the base of it, when I created it, was sisterhood, because I'm thinking sisterhood is what we need, right? And it is what we need, because we have been deprived from it to an extent, but we cannot get stuck there. And this is why I made it a point when I created OPS, is I center the children and I center men. Meaning this is not a space for women who don't want to be married. This is not a space for women who don't value children. And that's one thing that is missing within these sister spaces, is you can be allowed into these spaces if you do not value men. You can be allowed into sisterhood spaces if you do not value children. And that is detrimental, because the basis of sisterhood, remember what I said, it was a prerequisite for wifehood and motherhood. So if you are stuck in that sisterhood space, what are you here for? You're just a drain. You see, you're just draining your life's energy, and you're going to propagate that into other women as well, and that's dangerous. And that is what's happening on a wide scale right now when it comes to women and how they interact with each other. It's very pleasure-based, and it has a large tone of dykeism, lesbianism in it, okay? These spaces are, or a lot of the times, most of the times, these women are coming together because they don't know how to value men. They don't know how to value children, and it's easier for them to conjugate together as women because there's no responsibility. There's no accountability. And so what I want my women to understand is, if you want to be a wife and you want to be a mother, you cannot afford to fall into the trap of these spaces that talk about sisterhoods. I have to do the movement when I do that. That's what they're coming with you with that terminology of, we're just coming together and we're gonna sit and some of these things could be, like I said, it could have some value to it, but 9 times out of 10 it doesn't. 9 times out of 10 it does not. And I want my sisters, my women who I know want to be wives and mothers and see value in those roles, to be wary and careful of these type of spaces that have the terminology of familyhood, right? Because sisterhood is a familial term. It's a familial term. It's not a friend term. It's a familial term. And so sisterhood is also connected to wifehood, motherhood, fatherhood, brotherhood. You see, these are familial terms. And when we remove those other familial elements of sisterhood out of what sisterhood is, we set ourselves up to turn into lesbians. That's the reality. Setting ourselves up to be in spaces where women, because they can't value men, and because they can't commune, and they don't know how to actually sit with a man and listen to a man and hear what he has to say and interpret what he says and give him something back of value, because we don't know how to do that, because we don't have the patience to do that. Now we're like, I just gonna be around my sisters. I ain't gotta do that with them. I ain't gotta do none of that with them, right? It's just a free-for-all, right? And so sisterhood in the West can foster hatred for men and obsessive lust for women. So what's happening is you're coming into this space and you're like, yeah, but when you remove that man element, when you remove that child element, these are homosocial environments. And homosocial environments create homosexuality, right? This is why a lot of times you may see football players or basketball players, they'll start looking real effeminate. And you'll be like, he didn't look like that in the beginning. Why he look like that now? He's in a homosocial environment. They've removed the child. They removed the woman from the space. So you're going to intrinsically get homosexuality from these spaces, okay? And it's important that we understand that. I'm not worried about how this makes you feel. I'm worried about this is the truth, and we need to hear this so that we can make sure that we are dodging literally, that ain't what I want. That ain't what I want. And like I said, the terminology will slip you up. The terminology will slip you up because it will have you thinking that this is about familial and this is about coming together and being sisters and loving on each other and self-love and healing. Listen. Miss me completely, because I see value in my husband. I see value in African men, black men. I see value in children. I see value in elderhood, and I cannot afford to get stuck in sisterhood. Yes, I'm still having to learn how to do sisterhood the right way because I was deprived from that because I lived in a Western environment, but I'm not going to get stuck there. Okay, I can't afford to get stuck there. Getting stuck there is going to be the demise of black women when we get stuck in those spaces. Think of the color purple. Think of sororities. Think of Woman King. These are all examples of the woman fixating on herself, essentially, and removing the man or demonizing the man, right? So whether you demonize him or you remove him, it's essentially the same. And we're not getting that essence and that power from him. And we cannot be women. Anytime I start hitting my hand, we cannot be women. We cannot be women without men. And I know we live in a space in social media that is telling us how trash men are, and they're cheaters, and they're just all of these things, right? But listen, if they're those things, then we're those things too. Okay? If they're those things, then we're those things. If they're those things, our children are those things as well. So just watch what you say when you talk about men, because you're telling me how you view yourself, how you view your children, how you view your father and your uncle, right? Be careful, right? And so this is really important that we grasp. And I wanted to bring up sororities because I think it's interesting that college is initiating women into sisterhood at the exact age when they should be going into wifehood and motherhood. So they late. You done got a 10-year head start if you started sisterhood when you were supposed to start it. But in the West, women are joining sororities at the time where they should be looking to be a wife, be a mother. So we're doing things so late, and this is why women are in their 40s and 50s and they're single. They ain't set us up to be wives. They ain't set us up to be mothers. They set us up to be sisters, because there's no children that come out of sisters. And what is the agenda? What is the ultimate agenda of white domination, white so-called domination? What's the agenda? It's to stop reproduction. Why would I want people who I hate to keep having children? Why would I want that? Right? So if I can get you to fixate on another woman, or I can get you to fixate on another man, have at it. Just don't value the man. Just don't value the woman. Whatever you got to do, just leave them out. And I'm saying that is running rampant. And if you are a woman or a man, sorry, I'm talking to women, my bad. If you are a woman who wants to be in a meaningful, healthy, functional a relationship with an African black man, you cannot afford to allow these type of women into your space, because they're going to suck you dry, right? They're going to just drain you of all your life energy, because the reality is when you don't have that responsibility, you leech on to people a lot easier who do, and it can become a drain, right? And so I do think that it's important for women who are single to be in the presence of women who are married with children, because they get to see. But it's also that woman has to have a level of maturity to not overextend herself. So it gets tricky in that space. But essentially what I'm trying to say is that sisterhood, it fosters this lust for other women unconsciously, right? Not consciously. All of this is subconscious. Sometimes. Now, some of these people actually, for real, they conscious of it. But some people truly are not conscious of it, and they just get trapped in this space of sisterhood, and then they start wondering why they just have this disgust for men all of a sudden. Why they get agitated when children come around. You see, that's not natural to women. It's not natural for a woman to not like children. That's very unnatural. It's not natural for a woman to start rolling her eyes when she see a man come into a space. That's unnatural, right? And so understanding that is important. So sisterhood can become latent lesbianism. So I already said that. So when the rites of passage. So rites of passage is important, because that rites of passage is what's preparing you to leave sisterhood behind. It's a severing, right? Everything is a weaning on, weaning off process. So we're saying we're going to prepare you through this rites of passage to leave behind sisterhood. You can still have friends. You can still have women who you bond over. But now those values are going to be different. After this rites of passage, now you're going to be looking for women who can contribute to you as a mother, who can contribute to you as a wife. That is what that rites of passage is symbolizing. It's symbolizing leaving the sisterhoods behind and starting into something new. The extended motherhood, right? The extended motherhood says, I'm focusing on you, how you are as a mother. How are you as a wife, and how are you as a mother? Because how you are as a wife and a mother is going to help me be a better wife and a mother, and we can raise our children together. Not in no lesbian sense, in the sense of you have a husband, I have a husband, and we both see value in each other's abilities to raise healthy families, right? That is what extended motherhood is. It decenters what you like. Like, oh, sis, I like you because you cute, your hair be cute, or I like you because you creative, or whatever. It's like, no, those are infantile reasons to start forming relationships with women. We want to form a relationship with women based on the woman's values and based on how she shows up for people who are most important to her, which is her family, which is even her parents. Like, how does she relate to her parents? These are all things that men who value women, they look for these things. And if the woman is not, if she doesn't care, if she's not centering the right people in her relationships, he's not going to see value enough to her to make her his wife. or to, continue the relationship to where it leads eventually to them being in a committed relationship. So that's really important to understand. Also, I think it's important to highlight that, because for me, what I'm starting to realize is sisterhood essentially doesn't exist when you're outside of communal environments. Once you leave communal spaces, these brotherhoods and these sisterhoods, these are not real, right? And you start creating facades of fraternities and sororities. You start creating these entities where you can pretend like you have brotherhood and sisterhood, but you really don't. Because if you lived in a communal society, you wouldn't need to go through these steps. So essentially what I'm starting to realize is sisterhood is not a thing. These are just women who just like to be around each other and don't understand the real value and responsibility of what it looks like to leave sisterhood behind and to go into different realms of responsibility. And so one way that you can tell that sisterhood is dead is because you have the concept of homewreckers. Homewreckers are literally women who see men married to other women and want them because they're married. Not because the man is valuable, but because he's married. You see, and this is so rampant that we have a title for it. Once you remember, we've said this before in previous videos. Once you start creating terminology to describe something, that means it's happening a lot. Okay? And so we don't have a term to describe men who are going into marriages and pulling the women out. But we do have a term for women who are going into marriage and pulling men out. Okay? So because that we've created a term for that, that lets us know that it's happening on a large scale. And because it's happening on a large scale, that lets us know that sisterhood can't be a thing. How can it be a thing when the women are literally taking their sister's man or trying to take their sister's man? This concept lets us know that sisterhood has been broken, right? Sisterhood is not a thing, but it makes us feel bad to say that, so we fixate on it and we say it all the time. Sisterhood, sisterhood, sisterhood. We say it all the time, not realizing that it's not there. It's not there, because it's literally people who will say that when men get married, they become more desirable to women, not because they're good men, but because they're married and they see another woman there. And so a lot of this is these women in these sisterhoods, they really don't like women. They only like women who don't like men. Okay? Does that make sense? So these sisterhoods, a lot of the time, they like women who don't like men. But if you're a woman who likes men, now they want to attack you. Now they want to figure out how they can mess things up within your relationship. Now they want to figure out how they can pull you outside of the home, right? Drain your energy. A lot of these women don't like you. They only like you if you don't like men. Okay? And so this is another element that these are not functional people to be around. And this is really just a sign of how successful white people were at destroying the black community. You see, in what I'm talking about, I'm really talking about how successful the plan was for black people. The goal was always to destroy the family structure. And now it's bleeding over into every element of life. Motherhood, fatherhood, sisterhood, brotherhood. All these elements have suffered tremendously at the hands of white people because we were in their presence for far too long. And so this is the product of that. So deprived environments among black women has led them to becoming envious in dealings with other women. So a lot of this also has, remember I just said these women don't really like you unless you don't like men. And so if you do like men, there's an element of envy that they have. Not because you're just this great, amazing person. It's simply just because you figured out that men are needed and that men are valuable. And you figured out how to cooperate with men. And you figured out how to raise children without being stressed and complaining about it all the time. Once you've cracked that code, now you gain an element of spiritual wealth that other people can see that don't have those things, and now they have become envious in a way that they want to figure out how they can take that from you, right? And so it's really important. Like I said, I'm speaking to my sisters who want to be wives and mothers, or women who are already wives and mothers, just to be careful of the spaces that you may think you align with, that has the aesthetic or has the look and the terminology that you feel like you align with. But then when you enter that space, it's an energy of lesbianism, or it's the energy of we don't really know how to manage relationships with men, we don't really value children, and you start to feel that you need to remove yourself quickly and you need to be more discerning in the future so that you can identify these things, because it's getting out of hand. It's truly getting out of hand. Okay, and I do in a way, and so this is my way of attempting to sever that. I mean, not to sever that, to bring that back together. So the presence. Now I want to talk about the men. So the presence of the man represents that women can be evaluated as wives and mothers. And they resist, women who create these spaces, they resist this by creating spaces free of men. Okay, so what does that mean? So a lot of these sister spaces, they understand that if a man enters that space, the man is wired to evaluate, right? Just like we evaluate men, men evaluate us. And when there's a man in the space, these women know that the man is evaluating them, whether that's about how they carry themselves, how soft-spoken they are, how kind they are to other people, how they are with children. The men are watching this, right? And because they're insecure, because they know they don't really have the ability and the patience to show up as the woman that they should, they just say, it's just easier for me to be about me. And they resist these spaces by creating spaces free of men, right? And so this is why you want to be sure that if you are in a space where it's just women, you are in a space where they're still centering the children and the men. They're still talking about them. You don't want to be in spaces where there's no mention of men and there's no mention of children. That's a recipe for disaster. The men have value and the children have value to us as women. Without them, we are not women. Okay? That's just the reality. So when we start creating spaces where the men are not talked about, the men's values are not cared about, the men's voice is not heard, the man is devalued, he's called dusty, he's called a nigga, he's called broke, he's called all these things, whether they verbally say it or covertly in their energy. This is important because they're telling you how they view men, and that is going to rub off on you. Even if you value men, eventually you're going to not value them just based on being in these women's presence. That's what they're there for. They're there to distort your view, distort your care and your love for black men. So you have to be careful about entering those spaces. When women, we also have to start valuing the judgment of mature married men and stop dissing men. Like, we can't afford that. Like, we have to listen to our men, listen to our brothers, listen to what they're saying, because a lot of the times what the men are telling, and if we continue to ignore what the man has to say, we are going to be decrepit women, horrible elders. We're not going to have anything to contribute because we shut our ears to our men, and they need to also open their ears to us as well. But we are the ones who birth the men, so we are the ones who have to start the trend. Okay, it's important that we understand that we have to start that trend. And the more you ignore men, the more you shut them out, the more you talk negatively about them, the more that you look at content that devalues them, or you get information from gay men. Gay men don't like straight men who are telling you how to find a man, because gay men don't want you to be with men because they want the man. Okay, don't take advice from gay men. Don't take advice from DL men. And it's a way you know. Spiritually, you can know if you're straight or not. And it's important to use your discernment in these spaces, because a lot of times these gay men are giving women advice so that the other men are free for them to have. That's what's happening, right? So it's important that women, if you value men, don't take advice from men who aren't married, who aren't straight, obviously straight, meaning they love and they value women and they love and value children. Okay? If they don't have those things, we should not be taking advice from them. If they're single men, we don't want to hear from you. We can hear what you have to say, but we don't want you giving us advice. Okay? Because, how does that make sense? And so this is really important. So to sum this all up, I wanted this video to be short and sweet and straight to the point. What I'm really wanting to say is sisterhood is a prerequisite to other things, right? We don't want to get stuck in sisterhood. We don't want to get stuck in the space of pleasure-centered friendships. We want to get into spaces where we can pour into each other and they can pour into us, and that we can gain us wisdom and guidance. We can't afford that at this point, and I understand that there's so many. Growth is essentially a reminder for women to understand that we have the power. We have the power to resist spaces, and it's not about necessarily. You might hurt some people's feelings. You might do that. But guess what? Your energy is going to be preserved. Your essence is going to be preserved. And you're going to be rewarded for rejecting certain environments in the long run, in the long term. So understand that and take that in and meditate on how you, as a woman who wants to be a wife and a mother at some point, how can you make sure that your environments are void of women who don't value men, void of women who have potential to be dykes and lesbians, and how can you integrate women into your space who value men and who value marriage and who value children, because that's going to get you where you need to get. I hope this video helps you. Asante Sana, and I will talk to you all